Are Black Americans more vulnerable to terrorism than other Americans? Black Americans are most definitely more vulnerable to terrorism than other Americans. Terrorism is rooted in human psychological pathology that seeks to intimidate, injure, and control other humans based upon the religious, political, or racist ideologies of the terrorists. 5 centuries of institutionalized enslavement, Jim Crow, segregation, and benign neglect have made Black Americans a favorite target of conservative terrorists, hate mongers, and religious zealots. Blacks are the most identifiable and vulnerable population group in America because they are totally dependent upon non-Black racial and ethnic groups for their safety and daily needs. Just as they are unprepared to protect themselves in the case of civil unrest or natural disasters, it will be even more difficult for Black Americans to protect themselves from institutional-based, cultural-driven terrorism because they live in cultureless, porous, dysfunctional neighborhoods instead of close-knit, functional Black communities. Blacks lack a defensive code of conduct. The definition of a functional community is a physical community that has a culture and code that supports an alternate and semi-independent economy that produces services, goods, jobs, and has a tax base for its residents. In a functional community, people are familiar with each other and have common needs and interests. It is where they store and secure their wealth, power, businesses, heritage, jobs, products, and other resources. A functional community has an identity and an operational network of obligations between its members and socio-economic enterprises. To successfully protect its members, a community must have a physical location and infrastructure that can be marked and closed, if necessary, against outsiders who might pose danger. Members who live outside the physical community can still identify with it by having a broad sense of community and sharing the common history, needs, interests, and goals, and a responsibility to protect and support the physical community and its members. The bane of the vulnerability of Blacks to modern terrorism results from their not having functional communities. Blacks were complicit in white society's destruction of the Black communities that did exist until the 1960 seconds. Now Blacks have surrendered their community resources, sense of community, and collective ability to protect themselves from outside, competitive, and hostile groups that can and have historically terrorized them. In most instances, Black neighborhoods lack organizational institutions, local communication systems, surplus food, water, energy, and medical systems. The integration process, diluted or removed, experienced Black leadership from Black neighborhoods, leaving those left behind unprepared to deal with terrorists or other life-threatening crises. Just like the Ku Klux Klan symbols and marches, the primary goal of terrorism is to create fear and confusion horrendous enough to disrupt socioeconomic systems, paralyze citizens, and inhibit the flow of needed daily resources. Terrorists are unlike a classic standing army. They do not wear uniforms or bear standardized flags. They are advantaged by being unknown and invisible. They pledge their total allegiance and lives to a political ideology or religion, and most importantly, they do not actually exist until after they have committed a terrorist act. If they are successful in committing an act of terror, the media becomes complicit by promoting the successful act, which publicizes the cause of the terrorist and demonstrates their ability to achieve their objectives. They are not interested in how they are labeled or what consequences befall them. Terrorism functions best in open societies, where people have many freedoms and their movements and activities are not under suspicion. Terrorists thrive on publicity and seek the notoriety of public identification. Although episodes of terrorism are newsworthy events, extensive media coverage sets the stage for even more terrorist acts of violence. Klan members parade down Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. in 1925. Source: U.S. Library of Congress. Again, just like blacks have been impotent against the Ku Klux Klan and other forms of white terrorism, the United States of America itself is totally ill-prepared to fight, let alone win, a holy war or a terrorist-waged virtual war. Our government leaders promote the belief that America is the world's superpower, a world police force that has politically obligated itself to be the moral conscience of the world. Our response to terrorism as a nation is anemic, illogical, and ignores what is known about the true nature of international terrorism. Black America is even more defenseless and vulnerable than the larger society that has organized institutions and resources. There is no interest nor any incentives for other ethnic or class groups to take care of the needs of Black people. There is also no visible evidence that Blacks have made preparations to protect themselves. The electrical blackout of 2003, which impacted the entire northeast region of the U.S., sent messages to Blacks that other groups felt no obligation to share their resources with Blacks during a major crisis. In the Detroit area, for example, many white and ethnic suburban communities did not permit Blacks from the city to enter for food, gas, or other essentials. Blacks must have their own backup resources. Whether in a dependent Black neighborhood or socially scattered guests in white communities, they must have protection and the daily necessities of life in emergencies. When terrorism, man-made or natural disasters strike, it will be very difficult, if not too late, for Blacks to gain access to vital resources such as doctors, hospitals and grocery stores. Black elected officials, civil rights organizations, churches, and educational centers should take major responsibility to alert, organize, and prepare Black communities to deal with terrorism in any form, because Black Americans are a vulnerable outgroup